recently I was able to sit down and have a conversation with one of my very good friends about something that many of us women have had to face. And I'll also throw in many men have also had to face this as well. We talked about the significance of dating, of love, of loss, but also of redemption, of how God can often utilize a certain situation, a certain moment in your life and make it something very beautiful. I'm super excited because I've been able to walk with her through this journey and also see her evolve and grow and learn in so many different ways and aspects as God has been guiding and leading her through this entire process. And so I'm super excited to share my friend with you on our podcast, Made for More, where we explore the you beyond the box. But let me let you know, this is the uncut version. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what we really feel, what we really think, and also get into the depths of our heart and the heartbreak and, the betrayal, the loss, and all of the other things. And so I want you all to stick around as we dive deep into this conversation. All right. So let's talk a little bit. So, one of the reasons I felt like it was super important to have you as a feature or as a guest on this podcast is because number one, I've known you for quite some time. And I've also been walking with you as well as you've been walking with me in a very similar journey. And I think that this conversation is needed for not just each of us as we talk to one another and encourage each other, but I think that there are a lot of other women that could probably take some wisdom or pull some knowledge out of some of the things that we both have experienced or are going through at the very present time.
Yeah.
So before we jump all the way in, I want to just kind of start at the space of you moving from one place to the next. You can say where you move from to where you're at now, or you can talk about, just what that process was like. And I guess for clarity's sake, just to lay some foundation, tell us what the journey or process was like for you from moving from one space to where you are now and what you believe God told you in regards to that move.
Sheesh.
Very loaded question, I know.
Very low question.
Very loaded question.
Um, so I have to preface this with saying how I kind of got here, just in a matter of my total faith and trust in God, and just like, I'll go wherever. So August of 21, I was kind of in a place. I was in a place where I was burnt out. I was just burnt out. And I felt like I had been going through the motions, just whatever kind of job I could get, whatever circumstances, and living however. But I was so drained, and I realized then that I was functionally depressed. Like I was just existing. And so I had a very honest conversation with the Lord then, and I told him where I was, and I was like, I'm just over it. And clearly my way is not working. Whatever I've been trying to do, whatever like routine I've built, like I'm not happy, number one. And beyond not being happy, like I just feel like I'm outside of what you want for me. So I'm gonna let you get in the driver's seat. And then however we go from here is where we go. And that literally set off the course of events for the rest of my life. Quite literally. I prayed
Mm-hmm.
that prayer August 21. It was on a Wednesday. And the next or that evening, he told me we're going to start a 7-day consecration and fast.
Mm.
And on day one, he told me to quit my job. The first day of the fast, he said, "Okay, have you written your 2-week notice?" And I said, "I mean, I kind of got a template, but it don't have no date on it. Like,
Right, right, right. Like, wait, hold up. Give
whoa."
me some time.
And he said, "You have to turn it in on Monday." That was Thursday. He said, "Turn it on Monday with this date." I said,
Mhm.
uh, okay. Not realizing that a year later, almost to the day of the day that I prayed that prayer, I was packing my stuff to move to the next city.
Wow.
Almost to the day.
Wow.
I did not know that he was going to start disturbing my sleep about the next move of my life. But when I prayed that prayer, I prayed it sincerely. Like, I can't do this no more. So you take over. I'm tired of being the control freak. Like, this is exhausting. And
Mhm.
so you take it. And he quite literally took it. And um, August 17th, 22, I was driving to Tallahassee, Florida. Um, with my mom on passenger seat, my brother was driving the truck behind us with most of my stuff, because the Lord was saying I was going back to school after I told him I was
Mm.
never going back to school because I had failed miserably the first time. I went
Mm.
to college straight out of high school and was not focused, not ready, and I was,
Same here.
yeah, and that was my first. I was going through my first season of depression when I went to college because of
Mhm.
grief and things that I had been dealing with. Not
Mm.
realizing I was depressed, but just going. And so I failed miserably the first time. I said, "I'm never going back to that. I can do corporate America well. I'm gonna stay here and like live my life."
Yep. Yep.
He was like, "Actually, no, you're gonna go back." Um, so I was hit Tallahassee August 17th, 22. And um, I was staying with a friend at the time for a couple of months. And then I moved into my own apartment December of 22. And I stayed there for um, about 13 months. And during that course of time, I started, but well, before I left Columbus, Georgia, my hometown, I started following the ministry that I'm a part of today.
Mhm.
I
Which
started
is an amazing ministry, by the way.
which is an amazing church, by the way.
Amazing. Yes,
Um,
definitely so.
yeah. I started following that ministry and watching them online before I even left
Mm.
Columbus.
Mhm.
Um, and so by 2023, the summer of 2023, um, I started dating someone who happened to be going to the church.
Mhm.
And by that fall, they were having their first conference, um, the first like official church conference. And we had been talking about it, and he was like, "You should probably just come." And I was like, I've been thinking about it. I guess I will. And it was my first
Mhm.
time um going to Memphis, but I was like, I think I'm gonna just go. It was a week after my um 30th birthday. 30, how old am I?
Exactly, because sometimes being in your 30s, we just be forgetting. So
A week
sometimes,
after my
yeah.
31st birthday. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
A week later, I went to the conference and my life was changed, quite literally.
Mm, yeah.
And by the time I got on that plane, it was power packed. The Lord moved. It was
Mhm.
crazy. And by the time I got back on the plane that Monday and I was settled back um, in Florida by like Tuesday, I had a very honest conversation with the Lord again. I said,
Mm.
"Lord, next time I go to conference, I want to be able to drive from my house. I don't want to have to get a plane or an Airbnb or a hotel. I want to be able to leave from my house. And that way, if my friends come, then they can stay at my house too. Like I don't want to have to find nowhere to stay for conference. Like I want to just be there. And this story is so funny to me. Um, so I've realized over time the Lord takes me very seriously when I say things out my mouth, and I was like, that's why I'd be scared to talk to you because you take me
Mhm.
quite literally, and I'd be like,
Mhm.
before I say this,
Is it gonna happen?
because you be
Yeah.
playing. Um,
Mhm.
so that was October of 23. My lease was preparing to end in January of 24, and so I had a 13-month lease, and the
Mhm.
Lord told me by November, December, you're not going to renew your lease. And I was
Wow.
like, okay, cool, no problem. And I am still in a relationship at this point. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm moving to Memphis, both for my church and also for this relationship. I was like, okay, well,
Mhm.
all right, cool. And I was still in school and I was not going to plan to finish until like summer of 24.
Mhm.
And the classes were online, so I could leave at any time. But I was had a good job. I was like, I'm settled. I got insurance.
Right.
Like I'm kicking it. Like oh okay. I
There's
got my
stability.
oh yeah. There's stability. I
Yeah.
got my rhythm. I can come and go as I please. I love Tallahassee. My friends are here. Like, and I can get back to my hometown in 2.5 hours. So the
Mhm.
comfort level is there. I'm in a pretty good space. I'm away, but I'm not too far away. Like this is a
Right.
good rhythm. My lease ends, and or gets ready to end. And I was like, Lord, I don't want to pay for somewhere for 6, 7 months. Like, I need an open door because I know I'm not about to leave right now. A girlfriend at the time was like, you already have a key over here. Why don't you just move your stuff in?
Wow.
And I did. And I literally, because I would be over there all the time, just hanging out. And she then gave me a key. I was like, I didn't want to be inconvenient. She was like, it's a whole bedroom up there with your own bathroom. It's literally your own suite, undisturbed. And I was like, okay. And I was weary about this is such a long answer, Lord have mercy. Um, I was weary about moving in because sometimes when you roommate with a friend, that friendship is over with.
Right. It can go
And I
sour.
oh yeah, and I was not willing to risk that friendship. She meant too much to me.
Yeah.
But it ended up being the sweetest arrangement ever. And we text each other now. I miss your face. I'm used to seeing you every day. Um, and so I moved in with her in January, at the end of January. And by March, I was single.
Wow.
And so I'm instantly in chaos here and here. Because I'm like, okay, now, Lord, you done literally put me back in the wilderness situation because I'm staying with a friend. All of my things are in storage. In my mind, I'm about to pack up and move to another city, not just for the person I'm in a relationship with, but I feel like you're, really calling me there. But this is crazy because there's no way that you would have me
Mhm.
walk through that. That's asinine.
Mm.
And so I um, was dealing with that on the heels. I had just lost my grandfather in December.
I remember that.
Yeah, after losing a great aunt like weeks before he passed, and then another aunt in January. So like in the middle of me working out physical movement and leaving one season to go into the next, I'm also going through another level of grief
Of
back to back.
grief and loss. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And all
Yeah.
of it's at the same time.
Mhm.
Um so by the time my relationship ends, I was just like, what is really happening here? Um so it sent me into crazy depression. Um we were still friends, but it everything was crazy. And it was just a mess. And so I got to the end of April, and in my soul, I'm like, I'm moving somewhere by the time I graduate with this degree in August, but it's clearly not going to be Memphis because all things are not it. Da, da, da. I went to a church um, at the end of April. I went to go visit one of my friends to do another podcast episode. And she was like, come to my church first. And I was like, okay, I'll go to your church. She didn't tell me I was going to get in the flow and get my lashes knocked off.
It'd be
But
like
I went.
it'd be like that.
And at the end of service, the first lady started praying over healing for different people. And I was like, yeah, God, yeah, God, yeah, God, bless them, bless them. That's good, that's good. And then she was like, well, if you're dealing with any kind of hurt, not just physical hurt, like internally, emotionally, whatever, come to the altar. So the pastor started praying over me, and they like read me as if they opened the book of Racquel. And I was just like, this is a lot.
Wow. Wow.
And one thing the pastor said very clearly to me was like, don't let disappointment deter your decision.
Mm.
And when he said it, quite literally, Memphis went across my forehead. Like my
Mm.
eyes were closed and I saw the words and I was like, come on now. And so I started working in my brain, like, okay, we're gonna make this move. I was going back and forth with God for the next couple of weeks. And by the end of May, my pastor, I'm sitting on the couch. No, I wouldn't even sit on the couch. I was cleaning the house. I stayed home and I was watching
Mhm.
live stream. And I happened to tune in right when he was doing altar call. And he said, those of you who are debating about physically moving, and
Wow.
like went into this prayer. It's on my phone. I saved it because I was like,
Mm.
I took it in right here, right now. And it was almost like the Lord was like, I'm not going to have this conversation with you again. I said what I said,
Mhm.
figure it out. And the end of the story is I'm here.
Yeah. You know, the interesting thing, like while you were talking, one of the things that just kind of really stuck out in this story, because I've also been through it as well, is how God will uproot you from out of your comfort zone and what you think you are coming into, or the reason why you are moving into your next. It could be something completely different. So you think that you're moving for one thing when God has something else on his mind or God has another plan. And it's interesting because a lot of times when there is a change or a shift or an upgrade or like renewal or something significant happening in your life, even if it's like God bringing you into like another place of your identity or your purpose, he will always or oftentimes allow for things to be shaky. Like he will shake some things up or like shake you out of something that you're comfortable or familiar with. Because like even with because I also, like I said, dealt with the same thing. Like, he will start like ripping everything that's comfortable to you to make sure that you only depend on him. And
Mm,
so like even with like your move, I can only imagine that it really was a faith move because you already have, before March, you already had it secured in your mind that, okay, I got the ministry and I have this significant person that means a lot to me that I'm moving here for, like, that level of stability and peace. And then
right.
one aspect of that like gets disrupted. And so you like, okay, God, are you sure that this is what you want me to do? And I don't think we talk enough, like, especially, like with women, of how mentally taxing sometimes it can be when you are like like you are just focused on a certain thing, or we just flat out a relationship, and then all of a sudden it just instantly can be disrupted or ended, or you know what I'm saying. And we see a lot of men that will be like, okay, I moved on, and then next month they got a whole new girlfriend. But for women, it's not like that for us. And
Mm-mm.
so talk about like what was it like when you first got to Memphis, and like what was your thought process? Like, okay, I'm finally here, you know, what was that like? And the reason why I asked that is because specifically like for women in general, you know, we have to learn how to, pivot. I've been talking to somebody else about a certain situation very similar relationship wise, and one thing that keeps reoccurring like the conversation is learning how to pivot even in heartbreak, or like learning how to pivot even when you are in expectation of one thing to happen and it doesn't, and you have to kind of just be like, okay, I'm pivoting and I'm redirecting my focus. Like, what has that been like for you, or what was that process like when you first got into Memphis, knowing that the relationship is no longer there, you still got to see this person, which is what we're going to talk about here shortly, and having to live life in a whole different reality of what you thought it would be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you thought that you was going to be there with him, but now you're there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're there for the, outside of God's will. You're there because God has another plan.
Yeah. So like I said, once the relationship ended, we still were friends in communication, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I was getting here and settled, I felt like, okay, I still have my friend.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a relationship, it's not the way I would like it, but I still have my friend. But things quickly were like, probably not gonna go the way you think. Like,
Yeah.
literally a vehicle to get you to where I need you to be, but it's probably not gonna stay this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that very quickly. Now this time was different because, like I said, in Tallahassee, I can get to my quote unquote comfort zone in 2.5 hours. Sometimes less if I'm driving a little fast.
Mm-hmm.
But I am now 6.5 hours away from my family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my closest friends outside of the ones I have now here, 3 hours, 3.5 hours, 5 hours away, like,
Yeah.
and no family at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so, literally having to dig my feet in the ground, like, okay, you said the Lord sent you here, so what you gonna do? Um, so what I'll say outside of him, one of the other thing I prayed a lot before I moved. Um, and one of the things that I was concerned about was I had been like applying at jobs and all kind of stuff here in Memphis, but my address still said Florida, and they weren't getting like I'm moving, like I'm trying to relocate, da da da.
Right, right.
So I couldn't get a job. And then when I was getting ready to leave my company in Florida, they were like, "Well, we'll create a remote position for you, and we'll just figure it out, da da da, so you can work there
Mhm.
still." And I was like, "Okay, look at God, okay, woo!" I got here, and within weeks that fell apart
Wow.
because of technology. Number one, there was miscommunication about what I was going to be required. All kind of stuff
Mhm.
fell through, um, and it was like one thing after the other. Everything that I thought would be in place wasn't,
Mhm.
and I'm
Mm.
like, okay, Lord, I done trusted you and made this launch, and this is a very big leap. Like Tallahassee was a leap, but this is it. Like we done jumped out here,
Very big,
and
yeah.
there is no pillow, no mattress in sight. Like we just out here by ourselves,
Mhm.
quite literally, and having to literally put my feet in the ground. Like, okay, you said so, I'ma stay. And 1 week after the other, like another layer of comfort being ripped from under me.
Mm.
And so it got so bad at some point by December. I had just been here a little over 3.5 months.
Mhm.
And I felt like I was kind of getting my footing a little bit, um, or at least trying to get settled.
Right.
And I was talking to the Lord one day, and He was just like, "If I would have told you how this was going to play out, you would have never came." And I said, "You right about it, because
Yep.
I wouldn't have packed my gown
Yeah.
back.
Hmm.
Absolutely not. Nobody signs up for this level of chaos.
At
Nobody
all.
signs up to just hop out here and everything that you thought was is just upside down."
Hmm.
And so I really had every right to pack up my stuff and be like, maybe I missed you, Lord. I'm gonna just go ahead and go back home. It's not really a big deal. Like I can take a failure or an L right now. I can go give me a quick little job in Columbus. Like it's not a thing. We can figure it out.
Hmm.
But there was just something in me that was just like, you gotta push through this moment
Yeah.
for
I'm
whatever.
I want to pause because that is so significant and important because even this week, so I had a situation or scenario occur at my job, and it was so easy to just be like, you know what, I quit, or I'm
Mhm.
just ready to walk away. And what that moment has taught me is the importance and the significance of being able to stand against adversity or against something that is very uncomfortable, because could it be like God puts us in to certain situations, or he allows for certain things to occur because he's building resilience within us in the event that next time a situation occurs, you not finna just up and leave. Like, okay, it's so easy to like give in to just running and hiding and being like, okay, I'm done, I'm out. Like breakup is off. Partially something that I did, but I also believe that it was a tool, it was a way of God allowing for me to be refined and like healed. I needed to come back because God was preparing me like for another significant loss. But on for the most part, there are times that God will allow for us, or he'll give us the grace to like push through it and be like, you know what? It's easy for me to leave, but I'm actually going to stay. And
Mhm.
no matter how uncomfortable this may feel, I'm not about to let the enemy punk me from like gaining or learning or obtaining what is rightfully mine. Because a lot of times we think that if something's not working out, or if the breakup is called off, or if the job is not, being favorable towards you, then that's a sign that, okay, I gotta go, or I didn't hear God. When in reality, you did hear the Lord, and there are adversities or times that you are going to experience things that are difficult, but God is with you. And
Mhm.
you, side note, I'm super proud of you that you didn't leave. And I think I told you that when I was there, and I was just like, you're supposed to be here. Like, you are legitimately supposed to be here, because there is so much more that you are receiving and obtaining from this very moment
Yeah.
that you have no idea. And had you went home to what is comfortable, to everything that God intentionally ripped from up out under you, you would probably be missing the things that God is instilling in you. And sometimes we don't see that. All we
Right.
see is what we feel like, oh, this is uncomfortable, or we will talk about the portion of this person or individual that you were dating having a major platform, and you still being able to stand and be like, you know what? I understand that there might be more eyes, more ears, more voices that may be looking at you or talking to you, but I'm not going to allow for that to be a distraction to what I know God is doing within this moment of my life. I want you to talk about that. How let me hold on, let me just backtrack. We talked about you being there. You're finally there. You all have already broken up. You're no longer together. And now you are coming face to face, not only with just with this individual, but now you're also coming face to face with other people that may know. Talk about, and this is the raw, uncut version. How uncomfortable is that? Or how uncomfortable was that? And the reason why I say uncomfortable is because sometimes as women, we try to be like, oh no, I'm good. Forget them. But then we go home and go, me. That was me. Like, I think when the divorce, or not the I say the divorce, the
Right.
separation or the wedding was called off, I was trying to prove to everybody, I'm good, I'm moving forward, but I was crying deeply with inside. I was so broken and so hurt. And it wasn't necessarily just like the fact that, the wedding was called off. It was just like, God, why would you allow for this to occur? This is embarrassing. There are people that know, like, all of the things. And that may not be your same sentiment, but for me, I know I was just trying to push through. There would be times I was calling you crying, like just so many things
Yeah.
mentally and emotionally. I'm all over the place. I'm trying to keep it together, trying to keep it together for the sake of myself, trying to keep it together because I have a sick mom that I'm taking care of. I'm trying to make sure that my family's straight. There are ministry people that we have to put a smile on. And I know for you being a PK, really
Yeah.
having a smile in front of people and just make sure that everything, we're presentable. Talk about that. Like, what was that like for you? Like having to go through or even, you know, come face to face with different people and even still now.
Um, you're right. And I've been thinking about that. How women sometimes, how we as a group sometimes be like, baby, I'm fine. It ain't even phased by that. It is what it is. I done moved on to
Mhm.
the next thing. Da, da, da. Like, it wasn't me. That was not me. Baby, I'm
Mhm.
sad. Hurt. So what?
Hurt,
Hurt.
literally.
And I wrote this in my blog a couple weeks ago. Like, I realized very quickly this wasn't gonna be something I was gonna be able to eat some ice cream, some cinnamon rolls, watch Waiting to Exhale, cry about it, and we're gonna move on to the next thing.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
no, we're gonna have to feel this. We're gonna have to sit
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah. The feeling part.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah, the feeling part. Cause you have people and it's heartbreak in general is already a lot because you have not only your emotions and
Mm.
your feelings that you're trying to process through. If you want to be a healthy individual, you'll actually take the time to process what you're feeling instead of just
Right.
past it. That's the first thing. But on the other side of that, you have audiences of people to include friends,
With an S.
to
Exactly.
include friends, family, onlookers, whoever, who now have their own opinion and now their voices are screaming upside your head. And it's like that on top of what I'm already warring with here is just so much. And I
Mhm.
just need a second. And a lot of days I did not call anyone. I talked to very few people
Mhm.
and about what I was feeling in real time when it was like in the thick of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because like when you talk to family or you talk to your real girlfriends who may know Jesus but they just gonna fight,
Ready to
if
fight.
just ready to fight, like you call them crying, they gonna pull up to wherever you at. Like
4.5 hours away. What's up?
yeah, if they, especially me, like I'm in a place today where I cry about everything, but there a lot of my life I held it together. Like I was always the
Mhm.
strong friend, quote unquote. And
Mm.
so by the time my people see me crying, they're like, who has to die? Because if Rock is upset to this point,
To the point where she's
then
crying.
something is very wrong.
Yeah.
And so I could not call people. I had to literally, I would be in church wailing my eyes out, but like leaving church and having to go take a drive and continue crying until it was out of my body or just come home and go to sleep. Like,
Mhm.
and I remember one day having a conversation with the Lord, like, I don't really know how you expect me to do this.
Mm.
I don't.
Mm.
Like, I ain't never been no punk. Like, I ain't never been one to back down from a fight. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not that girl.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like, this is a lot. And
Yeah,
I
it's
know women that have sat in the current seat that I'm sitting in who have literally packed up their things and either went to another church or just left a situation, or city, whatever, altogether, because it was just literally too much emotionally and mentally, which I fully understand. Because all of a
Mm,
sudden I said, Lord, I'm literally in the place where I'm both healing and hurting at the same time. What exactly do you want me to do with this?
mm,
And I I remember him saying very softly, like, until you can pray for yourself, just let me pray through you.
mm,
But you have to allow me to. So I had to literally open up my heart and my spirit to allow him to pray through me. The things that, and it was just in violent tongues, because I'm like, I don't have
yeah.
words right
At
now. So you
this
going
point right now, right.
I don't have words. So at least nothing that I can say in church. So you gonna have to just pray through, cause what?
Mm-hmm.
Um and when he started praying through me, like one thing after the other, stuff started breaking off, and
Mm-hmm.
the anguish and pain and heartache just started lifting off little by little. But I had to allow him to step into it, because I didn't have the luxury of just folding my arms and sitting in the corner because I was so angry or so upset or so uncomfortable. It feels like in real time, when it's that uncomfortable, it feels like somebody is literally cutting you open
Yeah.
and there's no anesthesia, like, and you have to just exist there.
You gotta exist.
And you have to
Feel it.
exist. You have people who may know what's going on and others who have no clue what's happening, and you
Yeah.
have it in a row, you know?
Mm,
And so I that was just so much. That was just so much. Today, I'm in a place where, like, I can breathe. I can breathe. I can talk,
mhm,
not be falling apart. I can
mhm,
discuss what it is and have different perspective. I remember asking you, and I've asked another one of my girlfriends, and said, how do you tell a story about your life that involves other people without, throwing their name in the dirt, essentially, like,
mhm,
without just cutting them left and right? Because all I felt was hurt and anguish and pain.
mhm,
That's all I could physically feel in my heart, in my mind, in my soul. I'm just like, I just feel crushed
mhm.
inside and out. And I don't know why in the Lord's name I'm having to sit through this. Because it's not it really is a matter of, the easy option is for me to pack up and go home. And I don't have
Yep,
that luxury, right?
yep, yep, yep.
The money in the bank, I don't have the luxury. Like, I don't have any resources to get me out of this right now. I have to sit in this spot.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, and I remember you telling me, like, the Lord has to help you with perspective, and, like, what you were supposed to learn or something, like, out of this season. And
Mhm.
I can tell you, from the time I got here in August to present day, it's two different people.
Oh
No.
yeah.
Um, because before I walked through this last season, I don't know how I would have handled.
Would have been a little bit different. A little bit
Am
different.
I a little bit, a little
Mhm.
Columbus, Georgia might have showed up a little bit,
A
you
little
know?
bit. A little bit.
And it's a level of grace, like, with it's a matter of wanting to crash out, but knowing you don't have the luxury to.
You don't have. Oh man.
Like, people who crash out regularly, and not to, question anybody's character or anything, but if you are crashing out regularly, you have
Regular. Yep.
you have nothing to lose.
Yep.
Your reputation, your children, your household, you have nothing to lose. You
You
just
have
don't
absolutely. Absolutely.
care. For me, I don't have I'm in the works of some things, but, like, I don't have the huge bank account yet or the huge platform yet.
Yet. Come
What
on,
I
yet.
do right now is going to come back up at some point.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How I walked through this season, how I handled this, what I said, how did I retaliate? Did I say anything out the way? Did I pop off because my feelings were invested or involved? The answer would be no.
Yep.
And if you, unless you were, and I mean the closest of friends, because some friends don't still I haven't talked to about it because they pop off,
Just ready to pop off.
just
Yeah.
ready to pop off. So
Right.
like I talked to who I talked to. We dealt with it in real time so that I could be open up to healing and walk through whatever I needed to walk through. But like that, those first couple of months, it was like you on the surgery table.
Yep.
But I will tell you, I it was this past week. I celebrated 7 months, um, 7 months of being in Memphis,
Oh, yay.
and I was boo-hooing, ugly crying in prayer. I said, Lord, I'm so grateful you didn't take me out the fire too soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't even know how I'm saying that, but I'm so
Mm-hmm.
grateful because my stamina today in prayer and pushing through, I thought I could push through before, baby. You have no clue
Yeah.
until you have to sit in it.
Come on.
And the ability to pray for people when your heart is breaking,
Yep.
like you have no clue. And I
Yeah.
said, Lord, if it's not for anybody else, I had one person who so far who's called me and was talking to me about a similar situation. And I was able to walk her through how to
Mm-hmm.
through this.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not like this is not unto death. You're gonna
Mm-hmm.
walk through this and you're gonna make it through this, but you have to do da 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 and allow
Yeah.
God. And I said, if it was for nobody else, if she was the only person that I was able to help, God, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Because like there are the amount of women that I realized have sat in this seat and have
Yes.
to basically worship God with a broken heart,
Come on.
whether in
I'm
front,
telling you.
whether in front of the individual or not, like it happens all the time. It happens all the time.
And
And go ahead.
I was just gonna say that here's the thing. It does happen all the time. It happens all the time, number one, with women that are not married yet, and also with women that are,
Mhm.
meaning that they are married to someone that really doesn't want them or that does not give them the time and attention. And, my heart breaks for those women,
For
but I
sure.
also rejoice for the women that are not in that seat. Like, this whole situation or scenario could have went another way. And I often tell myself that, you know, when I reflect back, like, girl, this could have been a whole different way. You could
Okay.
actually be the woman that ended up getting married or, being in a long-term relationship and I have been in a long-term relationship where the individual did not want me, but I was just a facade because he wanted men.
Hallelujah worthy.
Yeah. And so you have all of these women that are up now worshiping and going to church and doing all of the things with a broken heart. And they're still having to pray and pour out. And, even if they're not on the forefront, but it's just them being in the presence of God or showing up in front of people and having to put on a facade, but you're not really either wanted or there's trouble in your home or people don't know the reality of everything that's going on. And so being able to, like you said, there was something that you said that was really significant, and you were saying like you cried and you boohooed and you cried out to God. And I think that moments like this are opportunities for us to keep going back to God. I remember sitting in my brother's living room the day that my ex-fiance got married, and I just sat and I cried out to the Lord. I sat in front of his fireplace. I was the only one there at the time, and all I could do was just cry and just be like, God, what? and why? Like, this makes no sense to me at all. And I was heartbroken. I was devastated. But God wanted me to change my perspective from what was happening with him to what God was doing in me.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times we discount and like disregard everything that God is and will do and produce out of us because we're looking at the present moment or like the current situation and what it actually looks like. When in reality, like for you to be able to say, I've been here for 7 months, I could have left, but I did not. And I've stood, even in the midst of adversity, I've been in the faces of people that knew as well as those that did not. I've had to see this person, this individual. I've had to walk in love instead of crashing out. Like all of these things, like God is producing the spirit of, love and patience and forgiveness within me. Like all of these things that are being produced had, and you think about what if I would have went back home? Would these things still have been produced? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like you don't I'm grateful that we are not taking our seasons for granted. And that's kind of what I was telling you, like being able to change your perspective of why. And sometimes it's hard because when you in it, you just be like mentally drained, heavy, and just depressed. And the anxiety is just trying to like overtake you.
For sure.
But sometimes when I would pray, I'd just be like, Lord, just change my perspective. Like, give me peace, give me a gentle reminder. And it would be like a friend or someone that would just send a beautiful message or, just a moment of encouragement. Or, like you said, I would go on a drive. I would go to the park a lot and just sit there and just let the wind just, hit my face. And like a lot of times people think that these things are not important, but I'm telling you, they are. Like, Lord, in the moment of brokenness, in the moment of feeling like I've lost everything, just allow for me to just be reminded that you are with me and that you have a purpose for this because none of this makes sense and none of this feels good at all. My question, I have two more,
Mhm.
um, and then we'll wrap it up. But my question is um moving from Jacksonville to Memphis and having to come into a new place of unfamiliar territory, a place that you've never been there before this, right? Or you've been to Memphis like before him and stuff like that. Did you ever go to Memphis?
No, not before him. I visited twice.
Okay.
And that was it. And I moved.
So like having to come into like unfamiliar territory,
Mhm.
what is that like? So outside of him, having to step into something that is a major faith move, like how was that for you? The reason why I say that is because I feel like there are so many things that God is like calling a lot of us to do, and we don't do it because we are afraid or we're second guessing or we're doubting, or it's like, God, I have never been there before. Like, prime example, when I moved to Columbus, I had never been to Columbus. I didn't even know the city existed.
Right.
And all I knew was, all right, we packing up. And I just moved. And that was the place where the Lord used a period to bring healing into my life based off of a previous relationship as well. And I got through it. And, the person that came to Columbus is completely different
Oh, for sure.
from this woman now. Like, I mean, some of the stuff I just be like, like, dang, like I really went through that. And
Yeah.
so what was that like for you, like literally stepping out on faith? Because I want you to really explain that, just in whatever way for women that may be having to make a major decision. This could be a major decision of them stepping out of a relationship or moving across country or, just making a major move. Like, what was that process like for you? And what would you say to someone that's needing to make that decision?
Um, so again, prayer. You
Mm,
have to pray and not pray one time and be like, okay, God, you said, and then keep moving. Like, no, it's like constantly put it before the Lord. And
Mm.
like talk to him about what you're expecting,
Mhm.
like what you are, and even whether the expectations are met or not, like get that off
Mhm.
your heart. Like, okay, this is what I think this is gonna be. I don't know what to just say it all. So that's the first thing. Um, the second thing is it's not a it when the Lord if the Lord, let me be very clear. If the Lord said go and do, it was not a conference call.
Ooh.
It was not a group meeting with you and all your friends in a room, and the
Mhm.
Lord came over the megaphone and intercom and said, "Hey, she's about to do da 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 da. Everybody be okay with it." That's not how that goes down.
Mhm. Or what do y'all think about it?
Or what do y'all think about it? Nobody
Right.
asked your blasphemy.
Nobody.
So, and when I moved to Tallahassee, it was more so I told everybody, like, because I had a home, I had been in Columbus for 20 years. Like, this is my home. And so I told everybody around me, I told distant aunties, uncles, everybody, like, everybody know Rock going to Florida. But there are people still think I live in Florida because
Mm.
I didn't say, oh, word when I moved to Memphis,
Mm.
except for people who were in Tallahassee and those like few people in Columbus who I talked to on a regular basis knew that I was preparing to move to Memphis. And then eventually, I think it was October or November, 2 months after I moved, I finally said something. And people still don't realize that I'm not even gone from Florida.
Mm.
Because when some people found out, instantly, I got, oh, you moving because of that man. Oh,
Mhm.
you going to that church? Don't he go to that church? Why would you go with him? That's crazy. You sure God said that?
Wow.
And when I say people who actually believe God for themselves, like actual, these are questions from believers. You sure God said that? You sure?
Mm.
I don't know about that. I don't know. That just sounds a little crazy. I just don't know if you're supposed to be going directly. So because of your fears,
Wow.
you're now
Exactly.
projecting onto me like I didn't hear him. And so, and by that point, by the time I was having those conversations, my stuff was already in the car. So like,
Mhm.
I was,
I was already in transit.
eh, we're already, I already have
Right.
it signed. The lease already done. It's fine. It wasn't really your approval. I was just making an exit. So I would advise keeping it to those who are about to pray and who are called to pray and stand in
Yeah.
agreement with you. Um, And then once you're there and settled, if you feel led to say something else beyond that, by all means.
Mhm.
But one of the many things I did learn from my past relationship, from what he taught me, was like more people equals more voices. So the more people that you let into your conversation, into your life, into what you got going on, the more their opinion is rah-rahing in your ear. And
Mhm.
sometimes their voices become louder than God's,
Mhm.
depending on who you're listening to. So I would be very keen on who I let into those conversations when you're in a transitional period and you're
Yeah.
trying to hear God to make another move and faith move. But on the other side of that, if you really did hear God and you go ahead and take the leap, whether it's by yourself or you have comfort or you don't have comfort, excuse me, the Lord will very quickly prove that, no, I said what I said. And you're going to
Mhm.
be okay when you get here. I say that because the moment I got here, the Lord was providing one after the other. I would get not only like random cash apps, but random grocery delivery orders or people saying, "Hey, come take a ride with me," because they're taking me grocery shopping, and I didn't realize that I was being
Wow.
hoodwinked. I'm thinking I'm
Wow.
just hanging out with my friends, and they don't pass me a card.
Mm.
Like I things like that, or friends coming to visit you and hey, can you bring so and so from the house? They'd be like, oh, we're just gonna buy it when we get there, and then go shopping for DVD in your house. And it's like I had prior to that moment, I had to work out um my own issues with just receiving without feeling like I have to give back.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord is just like, I just want to pour into you. So if they just give to you, just let them give. You don't
Mm-hmm.
owe them anything. They just want to pour into you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give it back to them. That's not your job to repay.
Yeah.
Um, but he'll make it very clear if he told you to do something, there's provision for everything that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Once
Mm-hmm.
once you activate obedience, provision is literally on the other side of that door.
Mm-hmm.
So the longer that you go back and forth about it, the longer you're like, I don't know. This person not really happy about it. They don't really think it's okay. Are they paying the bill? Okay, well then, guys, like you're not going to make every single person happy. You're just not.
Right. Right.
And especially if you're not trying to please God. Like
Yeah.
if it was up to some people in my life, they would have been came and packed up my stuff and sent me home. Cause I'm in their mind going through hell. And like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I've been through some pretty trying seasons, but packing up and heading back to a comfort zone to do the same thing I was doing, being
Exactly.
constantly depressed and not working in purpose is not a part of the agenda.
Yes.
So I can't afford to pack up and go home.
Yeah.
But because I said yes to the Lord and I decided to obey him and stick with his plan, I I can't tell you the amount of things that the Lord has done for me and the amount of
Mm-hmm.
relationships that been able to cultivate and the amount of people that I've been able to pour into and just be
Mm-hmm.
present for here in the community that I've opened up to. And I was a love friend and I were talking, one of the friends at church, and the beautiful thing about our church is a lot of people did move because the Lord said so. So a lot of us don't have family here. So our church is our family. Like we're just in
Wow. That's beautiful.
it is. So like we have a culture of we don't do life alone. Everybody is connected. So I went from isolation, like just being by myself to okay, what you gonna do? And my calendar got 14 appointments on. I'm like, I'm hanging with
Mm.
all y'all this week. Jesus. But there was a time that I was like crying out to the Lord, like, you see me here, I'm by myself. I don't have nobody to love me. And now if I go 2 days without talking to these people, God help us.
Right. They're like, where Racquel at?
Where's she at? I'm going out of town next weekend. I told everybody, hey, I'm not gonna be here. Don't nobody love here. But again, obedience to God is so much better than anything that you can try to fathom. And okay, so here's the last thing about this obedience thing. Your obedience to God will not always match your logistical brain.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Whatever you have planned, because I'm an ABC girly. I will make an outline and PowerPoint with the best of them, okay?
Mm.
But when I tell you that outline somewhere in the trash, and probably two dumpsters over,
Mm.
because nothing I wrote about how this was going to go went in the order of what I planned.
Yeah.
Nothing. And so if I base this move based on Racquel's logic, then it would have been a no. It would
Mm.
have been an absolute no. So your logic and your thinking and how you think it's supposed to go and what he has plans could be very different. And usually it will be
Very
very
different.
so you have to make up in your mind, I'm gonna go with God this time and just trust
Mhm.
that He didn't bring me here to die. And that's been my key phrase since I got here with all the pain, all the
Mhm.
suffering, the constant anguish. I said, Lord, you did not bring me here to kill me, you brought me here to heal me. And I would repeat it
That's so good.
over and over
That's
again.
so good.
I'd be in worship bawling. You did not bring me here to kill me, you brought me here to heal me. Bring me here to
Yeah.
heal me. Like and repeating it because it was just like I feel like my body's on fire.
Mm.
Quite literally. But I know you're working something out of me. Like I know
Mhm.
this is not unto death. I know it's not.
Mhm.
There's too much you put inside of me. Like
Absolutely.
and
That's so good.
I ain't even started yet.
You even got started. Come on.
I'm just getting my footing. So I know it is not unto death. You just some part of me you gotta work out. So
Yeah.
okay, I'm just gonna burn up over here until you get done.
Yeah.
So that's that.
I love what you said about how God sometimes he has a very different plan from what our logic, and
Oh yeah.
honestly, that's a majority of the time. I remember receiving the word during the time of my separation, and the word pretty much, it was in a nutshell. They had mentioned that um, God has not forgotten your plan. He's still going to fulfill the plan, but he's going to do it in a completely different way. And it wasn't necessarily, so they didn't say that God has not forgotten my plan. God has not forgotten the plan that he has given or shown me.
Right.
And so, because there was an expectation for a certain thing to happen and it was going to happen this way, but there was clarity in that word where God is going to do it, but he has a very different way of
Mhm.
how he is going to do it. And there's a different path. There's a different way that he's going to bring you to whatever it is that he's shown you. Because a lot of times we think that the path to purpose or destiny or the next, prophetic word or whatever God has given us is just going to be a straight A through Z, not realizing sometimes God will have you start out at T, go to A, go back
Hello.
to B, go to Z, go to, and it's just like, what are we doing? But what I'm learning is while we're in that path or while we're walking through that path, God, just as you said, he's working something out of us so that when you get to that point of whatever is next for your life, you're able to sustain it. You're
Mhm.
able to manage it. So it's bigger than you. It is way bigger than you, which leads me to made for more, where
Mhm.
we think that we are like just supposed to be, in one box, when in reality God is he's doing something within us while we're in the fire, while we are being refined, because he knows that he has not limited us to just one thing, one box, one purpose, or one gift, but he's refining you in the trenches, in the moment of adversity, in the hard parts of your life, because he understands that I've made you for more. I've made you for bigger. I've made you for more than what your plan was. I'm going to show you that you're more than that. Like, I'm going to show you that I'm giving you more than that. And so I love what you said when you pretty much said that, hey, you might have one plan, but in reality, God has a completely different way. Not necessarily saying that he doesn't want you to succeed in an area that is near and dear to your heart, but what if this whole process of your life was about changing your perspective, stretching your mind, stretching your capacity, because he knows that you're made for more than what you felt like was the best. you
Right.
like you know what I'm saying? So it's just like I'm prepping you for more. And
Mhm.
that's the one of the reasons why God allowed for me to name my podcast Made for More, because like you said, everybody will limit you to, women's ministry and helping women and doing all of the things. But what if, God is calling you into personal life coaching? And I'm just saying this,
Can
but
I say to that for just a moment?
yes.
Everybody ain't called to women's ministry.
Yes,
If you
yes.
if you understand for real, women's ministry ain't for nobody's punk.
It is not for the weak.
It is not
It
just
is
so we can
not.
have little teas and brunches.
Exactly. Exactly. Like when
If,
I tell you,
if you talk
and
about
that's
women's ministry, you talking about heavy deliverance. You talking
heavy,
about heavy
heavy.
times of prayer. You uprooting trauma from childhood and
Yes.
on. Not like
Yes.
men don't, but women we hold things
Hold
our
and
own.
carry. Yes.
And so we carry all that stuff. So if you talking about women's ministry, unless again you just trying to have cute brunches and you want to be on
Right.
events,
Right.
fine.
Right. You do that.
But women's ministry
The
is for
ministry,
some uprooting work.
yeah. Yeah, definitely so. And so that's the reason why, like, and sometimes people will put you in that box and be like, "Oh yeah, you're a good fit for this." But God will allow for you to see that there's more inside of you. And sometimes He uses adversity and the trenches of life to get more out of you. And that's what all of this has always been about. That's what I've learned, that this you might think that it's about a breakup, but there's something that I'm developing in you that people may not be able to see. I'm allowing it to come up to the surface with the adversity that the enemy thinks is going to take you out, when in reality, it is only a tool to show the world as well as the enemy that there is something that is way bigger and way greater than what the enemy or even yourself or even people around you have even tried to limit you to.
Yeah.
You've been made for more. You've been made for so much more. And this right now is part of the path to getting there. And so, last question.
Yes.
What would you tell the women that may be dealing with a very similar situation? They just are either A, they're in a bad relationship, or they just came out of a relationship where it was not really good. It was not fulfilling, or the person decided that they wanted to walk away. The person decided that, they're gonna go and do their own thing. Or, it may not even be about the person, it may be about them, and they're just dealing with a lot of grief, disappointment, depression, anxiety. What would you tell them, or what would be the short conversation or response to what they're dealing with and how they need to cope with the season that they're in?
Okay. Short form, two things.
Okay.
One, you have to deal with the disappointment.
Mhm.
Um, for me, disappointment is a trigger word, it's my taboo word because I dream in color, very
Mm.
big vision, very big plans, expectations. I have vast imagination.
Very
And
creative, by the way.
so when that vast imagination does not meet reality the way that I saw it in my brain, my heart breaks by the moment. So the Lord has been dealing with my expectations and disappointment.
Mhm.
So you have to be honest and say, I was disappointed on how that played out.
Mhm.
You have to actually say that,
Mhm.
because otherwise it'll come off as they ain't doing that and what. And sometimes rah rah moments are necessary depending
Mhm.
on what's going on. Sometimes you need to
Mhm.
get the rah rah out your body. Okay, fine.
Mhm.
But it's not all rah rah.
Right.
At the root of this issue is I was hurt. It didn't play out the way I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
And having to sit in that, and once you say that phrase out of your mouth, you'll start following it up with all the things you were disappointed about, and the Lord can walk right into the room
Mhm.
and start healing those things. And you may find that the disappointment may not have been the situation itself, but it was a trigger from a disappointment that happened 10 years ago and you thought it was going to
Absolutely.
be different.
Absolutely.
So because you didn't heal the last disappointment, this one that you just knew was going to be it just put on top of it. And now we got 20 years of history we got to dig through.
Yep.
So you got to deal with all of that. And you got to feel like all the feeling like I got played, my heart broken, I don't want to do this again. You got to
Mhm.
work through all of that, but it's going to start a disappointment. It really is. It Once you deal with the disappointing part, it'll open up all the other feelings that you need to get to. But that's the root.
Mhm.
That's the
Mhm.
The other side of that statement is, unfortunately, Bookie Butt, you have to pray for the person.
Yep.
Because whether they are at church, in ministry, not in ministry, whatever you want to title it, they are still the Lord's son or daughter.
Yeah. That's
Still,
the truth. That
still
is
the
the
child of the king.
truth. Yeah.
And so you have, my pastor said something to us one time about us being filled with the Holy Ghost, having all this power, and then walking past people in church in silence because you
Yep,
got
I
all this
see
guilt
anything.
on you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't operate that way. You just
Yeah.
can't. Like the Lord may give you a little grace, like once,
Mm-hmm.
but continually to walk past a person just because you're just so hurt behind whatever happened, it don't work that way.
Yeah.
And you don't know, you have to be very careful with your wording in the transitional periods of a
Mm-hmm.
heartbreak. And when your feelings are wounded, you have to be very careful with your words, because the only person that knows how this story really ends is the Lord.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
whether the door is closed and shut and bolted right now, or if it's closed right now because the Lord needs to do healing on both parties and then
Mhm.
maybe possibly bring you back together, you don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You have no clue, but you've put the nail in the coffin every time you said, well, they ain't supposed to be that anyway. He was never gonna be
Mhm.
like, you
Mhm.
put your trash and your feelings all on top of it, and now
Mhm.
the Lord can't do nothing with it.
Mhm.
So instead of trashing the other individual because your feelings are hurt, take those very raw feelings and say
Yeah.
your very raw things to the Lord or to
Yeah.
parties who are going to direct you into prayer, and say those things and then go into prayer for that other individual, because
Mm.
whether they look like it or not, they dealing with a level of hurt too.
Absolutely.
Whether
Absolutely.
they're masking it, whether they're moved on.
Especially with yeah, I was gonna say, especially if the relationship was real. Like, if there was,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you may think just because they are not mourning like you are does not mean that they don't have thoughts that are keeping up themselves up at night.
Mhm.
So if the Lord is saying, I need you to pray over this person, like, you're gonna have to take a page out of my book. Let the Lord pray through you until you have the words yourself.
Absolutely.
Because you may be the only person that is praying over that person. You have no clue.
Mhm.
So you and it may sound like such a churchy answer, but I'm telling you, it's the only way I got through it. Like,
Mhm.
I did not have the luxury of. I'll tell you this: the first at the end of last year, the Lord told me I could have the first quarter of the year to myself. So no social media. I logged completely offline. I deleted all the apps off
Mhm.
my phone because I'm a podcaster. I have a presence online, and so I didn't want. I needed a minute. I had been posting and showing up, and I just needed a second.
Mhm.
Lord gave me permission for the first quarter. Go live your life. And we also gonna be doing some healing. I ain't gonna tell you this part. You're gonna be doing some healing deliverance, but just go take a break.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I am so grateful to God. If I would have had social media at my fingertips while I was going through some very deep rooted heart surgery, that would have been good for me. Would have
Mhm.
misused my platform. I would have misused or said something out of term. I would have said a little shady something here or a little shady something there that would have made people look at me differently, not the other person, because of my hurt feelings. But he ripped that resource away from me. So all you got is this journal, some canvas, and some paint if you want to use it, this prayer time, and you can go cook something if you want to. But all them
Mhm.
other vices,
Distraction. Yep.
we can't do that right now. You're going to have to feel this and you're going to have to process it out. So now I'll tell you this, I can go hug the person today and we'd be just fine.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
We laughed a while the other day, and I mean a while. But like, I would have not been in that place to fully be like, Lord, I don't know why it had to be that way, but you are all knowing. So there's no sense of me having this very big boulder in my heart and in my soul. Just take it out of me, allow it to work out of me, and you know the end from the beginning.
Yeah.
And take my hands off of it. And I sleep better at night, child.
Yeah.
So
I love that answer of you literally taking your hands off and just allowing God to be God.
for
Because
sure.
sometimes as women, like, we are so used to trying to be the fixer, where we either the fixer or the one that's like, okay, well, I'm going to try to just keep the narrative of how I want it to be. And I'm only saying that because that was me at a period of time where it's just like, well, I got to tell my story. I got to share my side, or I got to
Mhm.
let it be known. And the reality is that when you put yourself out there, or when you try to fix or change the narrative without God's permission, then you remove God's ability. And not saying he doesn't have the ability, but
Mhm.
it literally, he's like, well, why do I need to actually go in and put a narrative on this, or if there needs to be one, when you've already done it? And
You've already
so
done it.
we're like, oh, yeah, God already did it, but in reality, when we put our hands in the pot, we are really messing things up even the more. And
For sure.
so that's something that I've had to learn. Like you said, sometimes as women, we have to just take some time back. Like, even if you know that you show up on social media a lot, because that was me as well. Like, I show up, I have literally had to redirect or pivot my focus on other personal things that I knew that needed my attention while God was doing some deep work and healing within me. Yes, there may be a lot of clout and, conversation and this, that, and the other that's going on social media behind closed doors, but that does not have anything to do with me. That has everything to do with the individual as well as God. And from my understanding, if they want to do and say whatever they want to say and do, let them. I love that narrative, and I cannot remember her name, but she wrote a book. She's an author. I think she's a counselor as well, but her narrative or her perspective is let them, because whatever they're doing has nothing to do with me. And I am so appreciative, even with what you said, is when people look back on this season of life, they won't be able to say, oh, Raquel crashed out, or oh, Raquel was doing this and doing that and the other. Like, your how you respond is always going to catch up with you. It
Absolutely.
always catches up with you. So that's why, like, like you said, some of us, we don't get the opportunity to just do whatever, say whatever, act whatever way, and feel like, oh, it doesn't have a consequence, or, we have to think about the moment. And so some of us, our mechanism of coping and healing has been to steal away and allow God to do whatever he needs to do. Going back to prayer constantly over and over again. Like, I had a conversation with a young lady, and she's been dealing with something for several years. And one of the things that was shared with me was the fact that her coping mechanism was not God. It was other alternative things. And I won't say what they are, but I'm like, with you coming into the faith, you have to be willing. Like, I understand that this has been your coping mechanism, but we've been dealing with this for years, and you've seen where it's gotten you. So
Right.
as women, we have to be willing to say, you know what? I forsake every other device, and I'm going to just go to God when every single time it hurts, every single time I'm confused, every single time I'm sad, every single time I'm frustrated, because I know that He's the only one that can get me through this. So, with that being said, I love your answer. And I can also say that from beginning to even to this point, there has been a significant change or transformation. Not saying God is done, he's definitely continuing to bring you through that, but I think also that has a lot to do with the support, the level of, or the relationship that you have with your leaders, having a community that is for you there as well as outside. And then, like you said, ultimately, like, being able to process those things rather than just pushing them to the side and being like, I'm good. And, like, you know what I'm saying? But recognizing this hurts. I'm going to process this. I'm not going to run, and I'm going to allow God to do whatever he needs to do, because I might have come in this season as a seed, but I'm leaving out as a beautiful flower. I might have
Garden.
come in as
Garden.
a garden. You hear me? Come on, what's up? I might have come in as a seed, but I'm leaving out as a garden,
Mhm.
flourishing, blossoming, blooming. I'm not leaving empty handed. Whatever God wants to do or needs to do in me, I'm going to allow for him to do it. I can't tell you, there have been so many times I've been ready to leave the current city that I'm in. And I'm like, God, like, but then I realized, wait a minute, God is doing something behind the scenes where I know that I'm still supposed to leave, but that that urge to just get up and leave and just like, I just got to find where I'm supposed to be. God is like, no, you are where you're supposed to be.
Mhm.
It might be uncomfortable, but I'm doing something in you so that when it comes time to come back into the relationship or to come back into the next move or purpose or whatever it is, you're ready. You're able to sustain what it is I'm bringing you into. I know I said that that was the last question, but this is my last question for real, for real, for real.
Yeah.
Is your heart open to love?
Hallelujah, worthy. Ooh, I got a call. Wait a minute. Um, I am. Oh, I did so good without crying. Holy Ghost. Um, I am now.
Okay.
Um, but I had to acknowledge. I had a conversation actually last night with a friend, and I had to acknowledge just how much I care about that person.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it sat on me, and it wasn't making me like be in a fetal position of crying or nothing, but it was just like,
Mhm.
no, that love is real.
Mm,
Like I yeah, I can't deny that. I can't
okay.
deny that. And so I'm in a space, and I just discovered this in the last 24 hours. So me and the Lord got us some time to talk about it. But I'm in a space of, sure, God, I'm open to a date and trying again. Because, I am a wife. I ain't got
And
all these
is.
good cooking skills for nothing.
Come on. Good
But,
cooking skills.
you but I cannot deny the fact that there's love there. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to be wise with my movements. And um I Liz, don't laugh. I've only been on one date, and it did not it did not really pan out the way I planned. But
There's a
I
name I want to say so bad. Okay.
I, I said don't
Yes.
laugh.
Okay.
So it didn't pan out the way I planned, but I had to analyze, like, that person was a great guy, but I was just trying to fill a void. Like,
Mhm.
I was trying to fill a void. I was incredibly sad, and I just wanted to be loved and to feel wanted. And
Mhm.
so here I am, but not really ready to be invested or to even try again wholeheartedly, because my
Mhm.
trauma would have spewed up on that, and that's not fair to them.
Mhm. Mhm.
So short answer is yes, I'm willing to try again. I just I have more questions for the Lord.
Mhm. Well,
I
I'm glad that you are open. I'm glad that you are, and I'm
I'm
glad that you
open.
acknowledge the fact that you are a wife because you are, and if women could just see that, especially when God has planted that desire in your heart, he does have the right person for you. And the beautiful part about it is that when that person comes along, that they will make you that you will more than likely forget about all of the other people
For
that
sure.
you thought. Because there have been times where, girl, we've all looked back and been like, God, what was I thinking?
Now,
What?
why you let me do that?
Why? But it also shows progress because those same people have either tried to come back and talk to you and you just be like, I am so past you. Like, what? You were a thought, and no offense, you are still God's son. We bless God and we just believe that the Lord is going to send you the right person. But I feel like I might have been in a very vulnerable state when I agreed to even come into agreement with you
That's
in
good.
dating, or I was in a vulnerable state. My mind wasn't clear. And so that's the other part, making sure, like, especially when it comes to relationships, dating, anything in life, when it comes to decision making, period, making sure that you are not deciding out of a vulnerable place,
Mm-mm.
but you are steady and you are solid, that you are mentally, physically, emotionally stable and okay. Not saying you have to be perfect, but just
Right.
making sure that you're not choosing out of hurt and choosing to prove or choosing to, you know what I'm saying? Like, but you are choosing because you know that this is what God said. So,
Exactly that. And that's why I had to acknowledge where I was. It was like,
yeah.
yes, I'm open to I went out to myself out to dinner the other night. And I was prepared. My girls have me like, you gotta speak to a man now. You gotta go say hi to one. I'm like,
Go say
oh,
hi.
oh God.
I want to give us some
Uh
eye contact.
yeah. I said, what if my eye go lazy? What if I don't know. What's gonna happen? So I
Oh,
said,
lazy
I gotta
eye.
flirt. What's going on? I don't know. Uh, so I had to acknowledge, like, sure, I'm ready to try again, but
Mhm,
I have these waves of vulnerability and unresolved things in my heart regarding past situations. And
mhm,
the waves for me are a little too frequent right now for me to give my actual attention to someone else.
mhm.
And not that you go on a date and it's an instant relationship. Like
Right, right, right,
you
right.
can date and like feel something out and see how it goes and it can grow into something else for sure.
Mhm.
But for me, I don't want to have to do anything.
Right.
And
I agree.
if in my mind and in my heart I'm in a place of this could be really great, but you're not going to get all of me or a good portion of me because I'm still dwelling here or I'm still kind of working something out over
Mm,
here in my heart and in my mind, you're going to feel kind of neglected.
mm,
uh,
right,
and I feel like I'm going to end up having a conversation with you that says this was really great, but actually
right.
I'm not
But
ready for it. Da 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 da. And so, to avoid bruising someone's ego or hurting another individual's feelings because I know I'm not fully ready or as ready as I could
mhm.
be, let me just watch Grey's Anatomy until I get okay.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Mhm.
So,
But the beautiful part about it is that you are doing this journey with the Lord, and when you are ready or when he knows that you're ready, he is gonna make sure that everything just comes in alignment. So,
it,
yeah. So, well, I'm super glad that we were able to have this conversation. I always love talking to you and we talk offline and just be having a good grand old time. But um thank you for oh go ahead. Go ahead.
are you ready for
Go.
love?
Am I what?
Are you ready for love?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
Hello? Excuse me.
The
Are you
the
ready for
way that
love?
these roles are reversed, y'all listen, my friends, they be trying. They be trying. So
Are you ready to be loved, Liz?
that is a very great question. Wow. So, that is just the way that okay, serious note. So, I am I am ready for love. I am ready for love.
She said it,
Now,
Lord.
let me say that there is, and I just told somebody this yesterday. Um, I am having a really good time also in my own space
Felt
with it being, you know what I'm saying? Like just me with God, me just like, I'm in this really good space of just enjoying solitude. Of course, me and you, we don't have children and it's just like living our life, just and so it's been really, really good, but I do also know that eventually I will get married. I am ready for it, but in the context of purpose and like the person or that God has for me, I'm realizing that um I'm like, Lord, am I really ready for that? Because it's going to come with a lot. And I'm not saying it just with me, but it's also with you as well, because we're women that are called to do great things. And we're also women that are called to men to do great things. And so a lot of times people get in relationships and they're just like in it for the fanfare and the pictures and, the glam. But in reality, you think about the stuff in the trenches. And there had been one time where I like literally cried because I'm like, Lord, I have to count the cost of, just some of the things. Not saying that the relationship's going to be bad or anything like that, but it's just, there's just a lot of nuances or things that are going to go into play with, just a relationship overall. And
Mhm.
so I am ready to be loved. I'm ready to date. I'm ready to just like have that just spark moment again. And so I've been doing certain things to prepare myself. But also, I'm in the same breath, I am also enjoying my time alone and just, hanging out, just chilling. It's a vibe for real, So, because I think your pastor had said something the other week. He said there's a myth that people believe that single women or single people are desperate or we don't have a good time. And I'm like, that's the farthest. That is a lie. Like that, and that's what he was saying as well. He was just like, because single people be out here living their best life and do like
I have a blast with me, actually.
listen, like we can go wherever we want. It's and then don't be single and not have children. Listen, listen. I don't gotta share no food with nobody. Like I can go wherever I want, do whatever I want to do. Like, and not saying like we glory in that, but it's just the fact that it's I can go see my friends when I want to. I don't have to consider another person. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, but I'm glad that he pointed that out because I'm like, we have a grand time. We have a grand time.
Do
Okay. But yeah, so thank you so much for being a part. Um, I'm definitely excited for what God is going to do in you and also the many businesses and lanes of creativity that you have because there are a lot and I've seen them firsthand. But yeah, how can people stay in contact or connected with you?
they can go to my website. It's
Yes.
www.rackelshreets.com. Um, there you will find my social media pages, links to my podcasts that are available on all streaming platforms, Apple, iHeart Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast. Um, and you also have a weekly blog. I post a new blog every Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern. And so there are now 12, a little over 10 that are
Okay.
available. Go read. They just quick little reads that you could do first thing in the morning if you want to, or some on your lunch
Mhm.
break. Just chronicling my journey and about faith and things that I've been walking through. So you can read those, but all of my links are available there. And you can
Awesome.
find me.
Awesome.
I'm excited. I'm working on a book. Um,
Okay. Woo, woo, woo. That's
so
exciting.
that'll be coming down the line soon. But right now, the website's going to be your best bet.
Okay. Okay. Well, awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining. I'm actually going to switch it on over. Guys, I want to tell you guys thank you so much for being a part of this episode for Made for More. I'm looking forward to having you guys come back on many other episodes. I hope that you guys have taken something away from our conversations, our uncut conversations that normally these are things that we talk about just girlfriend to girlfriend on the phone, but I really felt like it was important to bring her in to this conversation because of the fact that there are many women, as well as men like yourself, that are actually dealing with different issues such as this or something similar. And so, one thing that I want you all to take away from this conversation is the fact that you are made for more, that regardless of what you're facing, what you're going through, God is using every adversity to align you with the right purpose, the right path, the right people, and ultimately his plan, which is the fact that you've been made for more than where you are now. Until next time, guys, I look forward to speaking with you. Have a great day or